I'm Temple Grandin, professor of animal science at Colorado State University. And when I was a young child, I had no speech until age 4, was diagnosed with autism. And autism can vary from geniuses that build things at Silicon Valley to somebody who maybe cannot dress themselves. But some of the basic principles is they can be sensitivity to bright lights, sensitivity to sound, but their brain is like a slow computer. It's like a phone on a single bar. And when you ask them something, it takes time for that web page to load. That's the web page that gives them the language. When I was a little kid, people would touch me and would tend to pull away. And there's some people with autism that can, this is a sensory oversensitivity, react to, being suddenly touched. Remember this principle: sudden surprises scare. So let's say it's someone with autism and you had to put the handcuffs on them. If you were just calm and you explain what you were going to do, they'll probably cooperate. If you just get mad and start doing this, then you're, big guy with autism, nonverbal guy with autism will probably fight you. If you got a young child who's having a tantrum, the police aren't going to be afraid of the young child. But the problem is when you got an adult man having a meltdown from sensory overload. That looks really scary. People with autism and a horse are animals where a sudden surprise scares them. Let's talk about stimming. Okay, let's say a police officer was at a shopping center or just out in the city street and you see someone going like this. That could be stimming. And people with autism do that when they get really nervous. So you see this kind of behavior or maybe rocking, that's stimming. And they just do that to calm down. And that's harmless. There was a horrible case with a friend of mine. His son in his 20s drove, had a job, got pulled over, froze. And the police ended up breaking the windows, a complete mess. When you have difficulties in the brain, processing speed is slowed way down, so maybe you freeze. Or maybe he's going to be going like this. And that's definitely a stereotyping. A lot of people with autism don't do good eye contact. He might be just sitting looking ahead and not do eye contact. You've got to give them time to respond. It's just like you keep clicking on stuff on your computer and it finally just freezes and it's not going to work. So that's where the officer needs to stay calm, to give them time to respond. That is one of the most important things that the officer needs to know. They are like a phone on one bar, and it takes time to respond. And that'd be true for autism, cerebral palsy, stuttering, and even just anxiety problems.
I'm Laura Vogel. I'm an occupational therapist. I worked with children with disabilities for about 35 years. I'm now faculty at the University of Alabama at Birmingham in the occupational therapy department. My specialty area has always been children and adults with cerebral palsy. So cerebral palsy is a condition that occurs before, during, or soon after birth. And it displays itself as a disability of movement. So these children don't move the same as typically developing children. It also is a problem with postural control. So some of these children can't hold themselves upright. They can't hold their head up. There are many conditions that occur with cerebral palsy. So some of those can be problems talking. Sometimes they can have problems seeing and hearing, and sometimes they have intellectual disabilities. Somebody with cerebral palsy may walk differently. They may lurch from one side to the other. They may stumble a lot. They may walk with a pronounced limp so that one leg moves more than the other leg. Their arms may be held up in what we call a high guard position. They can have one arm tightly by their side and the other one moving, depending on the level of their motor impairment. When they talk, they may be difficult to understand. Some of these children are in wheelchairs. Sometimes The motor impairments and the speech impairments of a person with cerebral palsy can cause their behavior to be misinterpreted as something else. And because of that, and because of the slow speed of response sometimes that you see in children who have this disability, people assume that they're slow to respond because they don't understand, and that is not always the case.
I'm Dr. Jan Rao, and I'm the coordinator for the Tourette Syndrome and Tic Disorders Program of Children's of Alabama. I'm also the co-director for the Center of Excellence for UAB and Children's of Alabama. I'm an occupational therapist, and I have a specialty in Tourette syndrome. The diagnosis of Tourette syndrome is when a person has 2 motor tics and 1 vocal tic that have persisted past a year, and the onset of those tics is before the age of 18. A tic disorder, which is the larger umbrella that everything falls under, is when a person has only motor tics or only vocal tics, but they don't have a combination of the 2. Vocal tics, sometimes known as phonic tics, are sounds that you make, again, that you don't necessarily want to be making. So it could be something as simple as a throat clear or a clicking sound, or it could be stating words or phrases, sometimes even cuss words and rude or socially inappropriate kinds of comments as well. Those kinds of statements are referred to as coprolalia. Coprolalia, which is the most known tic, is that tic, that vocal tic that happens when people cuss or say obscene things or make rude statements or socially inappropriate kinds of statements. It's actually one of the rarest tics that there are, and it happens in less than 10% of the Tourette or tic population. And so that you understand how large that population is, 1 in 100 people have tic disorder or Tourette syndrome. So it's important for people to understand that while this is a rare tic, it can still happen and does still happen. Something that can happen with people who have Tourette syndrome, especially if they have coprolalia, is that in predicaments where they're feeling threatened, they say the very thing they know they're not supposed to say. So for instance, when they're in airports, the very thing that they say is, "I have a bomb," or "I'm a terrorist." They know that that's the thing that they shouldn't say, and it's the very thing that they've been extremely fearful about their entire ride to the airport and with every step that they take walking through the airport, especially as they approach TSA security. So when they see you as a police officer and worry that they might tic in front of you, the only thing that does is escalate their anxiety about their tics. And you are absolutely going to see and hear every tic they have. And it can look crazy and it can sound crazy.
Hi, my name's Min. I have Tourette syndrome, and I am part of the 10% of people with Tourette syndrome who has coprolalia, which is the tic where you swear or say things that are like inappropriate to say, like if a bald man walks by, you yell, "Oh my God, you're bald!" This can be kind of weird for people who don't know me and know that I have Tourette's. They kind of think I'm a little weird and stuff, and they do get offended. I try to explain that no, it's really fine. Police officers, in my experience, have been very kind when they understand what is going on, but when they don't know what's going on, it's kind of a little confusing because they don't know why I'm acting a little out of the norm of I hate cops, of what other people kind of act like. For a cop or someone of authority to kind of know what to do, kind of just ask if they, I don't know, just ask what's kind of going on before kind of jumping to conclusions. And most people with Tourette's, they'll be able to fully explain that it's a tic, you don't mean any of it, and it's just part of being someone with Tourette's. When I go to airports, I yell "bomb," bombs, bombs, bombs away. I yell bomb in an airport, which is very, very not okay. And the TSA have been, for the most part, very nice about it when they know what's going on, but when they don't know what's going on, and I have Tourette syndrome, and it's not me just trying to be a little jerk, they can be very aggressive towards me, just because it is such an improper thing to do, especially at an airport.